Welcome everyone. This is the first artist interview of MUMA Gallery in Hamburg, and today we have Daniel Freaker here from the UK who came all the way to do a show with us. And I'm very happy to have you here, Daniel, because I really admire your artworks and I look forward to hear more about it. So what made you come here?
Yeah, so I discovered the MUMA Gallery just by chance, and has actually been quite a journey for me to try and find the right place here in Germany. It's a place that I love, but when I saw the gallery and the type of art and the attitudes of the artists and yourself and the kind of stories that you want to tell through the art, that really connected with me, and I just felt that my art really fits in there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that is nice.
Yeah, it's unusual. Obviously there is every art for every taste, so trying to find your place always as an artist is really hard. And obviously the artists that you work with in the gallery here are not exactly the same, and that's important also, but people can understand a relationship between them, whether it's through the colors, the atmosphere, the composition, the spaces. Something does definitely connect those artists, And I think it's also, maybe it's strange to say, but a generational thing. I think we are of the same type of generation, the same upbringing. So, you would like to say we have a shared language.
We share the same culture.
Yeah.
And it's interesting when everybody picks out of it and takes to tell his own or her own story.
I hope that they go, this reminds me of something from my past. That's what I really like from the audience. Every story from all the viewers and the audience is different, but their experience is kind of the same.
Yeah.
They say, oh, this painting reminds me of my childhood and my growing up and an adventure that I had when I was younger or something, and somebody had a completely different adventure, but they can also feel the same. Like, we all had the same adventures. We all had, relationships. We all got lost at one point, and we all fell in love, and we all go through life with those similar things.
It's an experience of being a human being.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like
that is what MUMA Gallery, the stories MUMA wants to tell is like the experience as a human being. This is what I'm so interested in, and I see this in your paintings, that you tell poetic stories which talk to the soul about the journey of a human being, and that is what I find so interesting, particularly in your work, and this is why we're here now.
Yeah, it's interesting because obviously the colors don't feel real. They feel like almost hyper real, but the spaces, everybody can kind of recognize them, whether it's an architecture or a landscape or something like that. But actually, being human is so important, and I think there's so much art out there that is, I'm not saying it's not valuable, but it's trying to transport you to somewhere else, or it's trying to, look fantastically beautiful or something like this. But I think what we are trying to do is go, no, this is real.
There's always, I separate the human being into two things. There's the soul, which can save memories, emotions, things, bad things happening to you, and the good things, and it saves it somewhere in a very deep private space, and that is the things which really move your soul and get you further. And then there is our brain and everything we learn and everything we see, all this superficial stuff, right, which entertains us. It goes into the brain, but it's not really moving us. It's not getting us anywhere. And that's what you were talking about. I find it's really, really interesting. Art that reflects this superficial world. You're not interested, I'm not interested in it too, but it has its right to be there. What we find interesting, I think, is to dig into this really deep human nature and to find out why we're here, where it's all coming from, you know, playing with emotions, why they are there, and telling stories about it. And that is for me, it's a very fundamental thing. It's the number one question everybody should ask themselves, right? And it's a nice thing to keep us going, I think, to dig into this kind of area in the human being.
I mean, I'm really curious why that isn't more prevalent, why more people. And I think my reaction to that is, well, because it's quite painful, actually.
It is. Right.
You know, so the deeper that you scratch between, you know, below the surface, you know, the reason that those things might be that deep is because they are quite traumatic, you know. But if you think about the surface, right, and most of pop culture being very much about the surface, then you start to think, okay, if we have to push a little bit deeper, then is it that little bit more painful even to view the work for the audience? You know, is there going to be a rush of sadness, a rush of loneliness, a rush of anxiety or worry? You know, those are things that do come out, and you know, sometimes that's equally painful and equally powerful, you know?
Yeah, it has to do with your own attitude to it. I mean, I'm turning 45 now, right? I think I'm wiser than when I was 20, and I learned that all these bad things happening to me, and even my own bad emotions, you know, if I feel desperate or sad or whatever, that always helps me to go somewhere, because that is a point where I change the direction and I think, hey, something has to change inside of you. You have to take another direction, and I appreciate these feelings, because otherwise I wouldn't go anywhere, you know. I wouldn't have this spark of idea to do this or that. And that is important. And work that shows not only the good side of things, but also the bad side, and then manages to be a beautiful aesthetic piece where you have a variety of emotions at the same time. For me, that is the best art, because it's honest, you know, and it's all encompassing.
It feels like a group of ingredients.
Right, yeah.
Together.
Juxtaposition of everything.
Yeah. So, I mean, going back to the surface thing, you know, I would really like to call my work visceral. So the term visceral, there has been a group of artists that have been interested in that. And I think what I'm looking for when I mean visceral, it's that there is a physical reaction as well as like an emotional reaction, but the first reaction being physical.
Yeah.
And it's before words. So words and language is all of that surface stuff. There are things that you feel, that you see, and you can't even think words and ideas before you feel it. Do you know what I mean? So it's a very visceral feeling. And so the ideas of the types of color is to break through that surface and give you that visceral feeling before you even think, why am I reacting to this painting in this way?
Yeah.
There is ideas, but I'm really interested in that physical experience. And we spoke a bit before about the optical effect. So that also being another physical thing of trying to put colors together that maybe in general would not be expected to be together, like a dark purple with a dark green. Those have a physical optical effect on you. You can't settle your eyes on it, and the color is different because they're next to each other.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're getting a movement, and your eyes and your experience of the painting is moving. Your eyes can't sit still on a specific thing.
Yeah.
So again, it's about a physical experience within that.
Yeah, what I find very interesting about your work is that you see the whole picture, and it looks it's in harmony, but it could also distract you if you concentrate on certain colors or certain parts of the image. But it also has this coherence, so I think it has both, and what I find very interesting about paintings is that it changes with your mood, that it grows with you, and that it can be a different image, whether you're sad, you're happy, whatever. And I think that is a very big value of artwork to go with you, to take on your emotions.
I mean, I really like the idea, and whether I achieve this or not, I don't know, but what I'm always looking to achieve, that artists struggle is to find something that catch you quick and then allows a life existence together with the thing, right?
I have to laugh because we have a very similar approach to painting. I think.
I mean, just talking about the colors, I like to take a lot of risk, and I wouldn't say that I'm brave. And I've heard people, the audience kind of commenting about, wow, that color, I would never dare to do that, But the reason I think I throw it on, and it's very much throw it. It's in the beginning I'm really not thinking, and it's very intuitive. But what I want is to struggle with that. I want to throw a color and an initial composition that actually it doesn't work. I'm looking for it not to work in the beginning. Like, I want that tension to be there. Like, I want to fight with this painting. And when I'm painting, I mean, most of it, I hate it. Until the last moment.
Yeah, it's the same with me. It's because you make it so difficult for yourself.
Yeah,
like you said, but you need this tension, and you need problems to find the solutions, because that builds the painting up, right? And gets more complex. The more problems you solve in a painting, and you solve them right, then the more complex the finished painting is.
I think that's really interesting when you say solve them right. I think that, as you mature as an artist and the more experience you have, the more solutions you develop, right? So you can throw something, make a big gesture, make those big bold marks with a trust in yourself. I didn't have that 5-10 years ago. It's taken a lot of time to develop that, I guess, trust, and also to really understand that I am working with tension, and for me that is the real joy. And the tension can be from so many different ways. So the tension can come from a contrast between organic and man-made, and the tension can come from something dull and something bright, or a compositional tension where there are some paintings where, for example, these characters feel like they're almost falling out. Many artists would put that central subject in the middle, and I'm really happy to try and break those kind of rules, if you like. And for me, all of those things, the precision of a mark in one area, and a really loose spray can paint and a big bold stroke in another area, means that the artwork is not static. There's a lot of movement, and that is the other thing. We are always, as painters, dealing with this thing is still. It will never not be still. Yeah. While it's wet, it might move, And I think that's really funny.
That is why I'm running against wall all the time, because I want to depict movement, constant movement.
Yeah.
But the painting is still.
I think, but there's a real joy in trying to generate movement in a static work that we know it's going to be static.
That is the magic.
But that comes from compositional lines, and direction of things. But for me, what really drew me to painting is when the paint is wet, and that movement. So I paint really fluid, and things are dripping all the time, and they are mixing, and I can't think about anything else while I'm painting, because I have to concentrate on that drip. If it goes across this, it's ruined, and there is a joy in that also, in the experience of doing the work.
You have some kind of a meditative feeling when you paint?
Definitely. I mean, I'm going to be really honest, I've really struggled with my mental health my whole life. And, it's been really, really suffering a lot of time. And actually, I don't think I would be here if I didn't find painting, and that's not just me saying it to make a drama or something, but, the last 5 years or so of, really engaging with painting has been my personal therapy, if you like. So I can deal with experiences that I've had, and you don't need to know about them, but they are present in the artwork. Lovers that I've had, and jealousies that I've had, and those things, and I can deal with that. But you don't need to see that as the audience. But it allows me to create the work, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah,
the artworks always reflect the one who did them, right? And in your paintings, one can see that there's a rich character behind it. So, I mean, it's nice that it helped you.
Yeah, it's really lucky.
Because, I mean, painting, it gets you into a total different realm, right? I mean, it is not material. It has nothing from all day, everyday life, society, whatever. It is a very private space where just you create something, and that gives one, I think, very strength also, and a calmness. And I mean, it's hard sometimes because you struggle a lot. I do that too. I struggle mostly the whole process. Sometimes I have a painting and it slips out in a day and it's perfect, but that is not normal.
I mean, we all go through struggles, and when I say I've had like lots of mental health problems. I think nobody can say they had worse problems than another person. So the problems are always human. They're always created, and you could be the richest person in the world, but you are going to suffer just as much as everyone else. And you know, if I didn't have a craftsmanship, a skill that I can really like engage with, and you know, I wish everybody could find that type of thing, you know. And creativity is, you know, it does allow you to sit with something in a way, and that is yourself. You know. And I just hope that when the audience looks at that, they can feel that amount of time, energy, passion, you know, has been there, you know.
So then I would like to talk a bit about your inspirations. What inspires you? And maybe not even for your paintings, but also in general, what inspires you, you know, what keeps you going, and what do you put into the paintings?
I mean, I think it's really interesting that you say what inspires your work and what inspires your life, and you know, they are very similar.
Might be the same,
you
right?
know, they are very similar things. I mean, my real passions are film and literature, and you know, there is obvious relationships between them. You know, it's about a story, but even great film has scenes where maybe, if you think of films by like Tarkovsky or somebody like this, it's a whole 2 minutes just staring at a field. It doesn't need, it's not about specifically a really understandable event. And I think a lot of literature is like that as well. It talks about a scene, a moment in time, and the author is exploring everything that they can possibly bring into that, but also, you know, bring in the emotion and things. So, you know, both literature and film are big inspirations, but, you know, I studied mostly film at university, and I found that I really enjoyed it, but the more established and the bigger projects that you take on, you realize the more people you need to be involved, the logistics, you know, bringing everybody together, and you really have to have a long-term vision for these things. And I'm a really impatient type of person. You know, I need it to happen now, and so painting was the type of art that I can do and manage that amount of logistics and planning and those kind of things. And actually, in a way, a part of my painting is a rejection of planning. You know, I really don't want to plan. So that idea of a painting that you can see, that you know exactly what it's going to be like, and everything, like a photorealist thing, I just cannot do. So I start with an idea, yes, and there are certain maybe magazines that I find, and I will collage or cut a piece out and go, I really like this, and then put those people in a space that I think supports the feeling that I want to give them. But I never really have a really clear idea of how I'm going to paint that tree or that building. And even if I try, it reacts to it. It doesn't want to be held in that way. But the things that I really caught from film was that sense of of composition. So the conventions that you have in cinema, every frame, for example, this is a 2-shot, so every frame has a name, and those were really interesting things for me to learn in while I was studying the film. And if you want to make somebody feel drunk, well, you turn the camera that little bit, and that's got its own particular name. And I think, I worked a lot in photography also, and so those things drive that framing, and lots of people comment, oh, I can see why you went from film to painting and what is kept with you, In terms of literature, I love that you bring the pictures to the story, and I think, or I hope that I can create paintings where also, because it's a capture of a moment, what people bring is the before and the after, right? So, she's walking up the steps here. What I want people to do is think, well, where has she come from?
Yeah, where's she going?
And where's she going, and well, we can all ask that all of ourselves, right? All the time. Where have I come from? Where am I going? What's the point? But, that is like a cinematic and a photographic kind of technique,
It gives you a bigger time frame, right? Because the beholder can make up the story where she's coming from, where she's going, and so everybody can build a story around the painting.
Yeah, you're definitely building.
So it is kind of a movie in one still frame.
Yeah, and
I think we as painters, we choose the titles to add to the story, right? I mean, I read some of your titles, and they're also very imaginative. And for me, it's very important, the title. I think about it a long time, and it adds to the painting, and it gives the viewer a hint of your idea, but it must not be the idea the beholder has when he looks at the painting.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to pin that down. Definitely never.
That would destroy it, right?
Yeah, I think it's very fragile in that way, actually.
Super fragile.
And that is another beauty, I can't pin it down. That tries to solidify something too much. It's giving it too much foundations, and it's reducing that fragility. And I think fragility is, for me, really, really important. Like I was just trying to explain, the most beautiful things I think are fragile.
Yeah.
Whether that's nature, but also some beautiful jewelry or a shell, or your relationship with your partner. It's all fragile.
But at the end, everything is fragile, so nothing has consistency.
And it's really interesting, because I think we as society and people, and I know myself, and sometimes it's better to just speak about myself, but I think there's a fight to keep things solid, to make it permanent, and a fear of that breaking a bit.
I think that with the stability, it's a very important topic, because most of the people, they strive for stability, and they realize that it's not really possible, right? Because things just happen to you which are not under your control, and it's mostly the big things happening in your life, and everything changes from one moment to another. And I always wonder, why some people can go with the flow and the others hold on to stability. And in my opinion, or what I see from others, I have the feeling that you're more relaxed if you go with the flow and just let it happen and accept that there is no real stability.
But it's incredibly hard to do, right? And I also think
because you have to let things go all the time.
Yeah, because if you think in that way, your life is one passage of loss. And we associate losing, and when I say we, I mean, I don't want to talk for every culture. I don't understand every culture, and I don't pretend to. And there is definitely cultures, you know, I brought up in India, and I was amazed to see, you know, I can go to the river and one night watch a human corpse being burnt, and that corpse was just died that day. And I'm like, well, we could not do this in in Europe. One, because of the rules, but two, because people really need a lot of time to do, you know, their funeral and the way that they say goodbye. It's very, very different. So to say that it's for every culture, it's not possible. But this is where we are, and this is what we can talk about. And you can, you know, there are some really important, really interesting philosophers. I'm thinking about Emmanuel Levinas, who I studied a lot in university. And they're talking about things that are the most scary. And I never even thought, for example, Levinas, he talks about the human face and says, this is the most terrifying thing that you can ever encounter, right? Because you can never understand what that person is actually thinking or feeling. But you have to trust, and the way that you build that trust is, I saw this before, so when I see this again, this is what will happen, all right? It's another form of stability. And the way that I'm exploring those things in painting is like multi-levels. And, you know, a lot of the paintings have really strong structural forms. And that is the representation of that stability thing. So where you've got the brutalism structures, it's like, okay, that's a plane, that's solid, I can really understand that. And then everything around is going in different directions and chaos, whether it feels organic or fluid or whatever. And I really like that tension between them, you know? So, I mean, I think it's difficult to say or to view that hunt for solidity as a negative thing. I think it's just a human thing, you know? And that's okay as long as you recognize it, you know? Otherwise, if you are fighting it, but then it's, well, your life becomes a real, you're becoming anxious.
I have a nice thought I want to ask you. Painting is, for me, a reflection of exactly that you are faced with uncertain things happening on the canvas and you just go with it, right? So when you're painting, you go much more with the flow than in your actual life. And I'm interested if for you painting teaches you to transport that, what you do in painting, to your everyday life.
I've never really thought about it like that, but actually, you know, my brain has just really appreciated what you say. I would say that I am much more tolerant and accepting and forgiving than I've ever been since, you know, like before really diving into painting. You know, I would get angry about all sorts of things and, you know, have a very fixed view of the world. And I think, yeah, absolutely, the action of painting and the fact that you really can't control the things Like, you know, I mean, yes, an image in the end does come out, but actually, you know, allowing that to take its own shape and have its own life has definitely really helped in that way. And that's a really nice thought and something that I definitely take away from this discussion today.
I asked this because it helped me a lot. I think about it a lot, why I paint, and I'm not only painting for people to look at my paintings, I do it for myself because it teaches me a lot to let go, that your expectations are not met at the end, maybe, and everything. There's so many things, and I think really the process of painting is like a mini simulation of life, and you dive into it and you do it. And earlier you talked about you became a painter because you don't want to have the responsibility. Like in film, there's too many people involved. There we're totally the same, because I studied architecture and I didn't want to have the responsibility either, you know, be on myself and go on this journey exploring. Just go on this journey to explore without... I stopped in this sentence, and it's good because there's nothing to go to. It's just about exploration. And that taught me to explore in life too, and it made me much cooler than before, you know.
Absolutely. And certainly in my practice, every painting that I work on, I say to myself, I want to learn something. You know, I am going to give my soul to this for this period of time, but I need to get something also. And that thing, actually, the idea that you are going to try something new. So you don't know what's going to happen, right? So let's say it's just a specific painting technique or a compositional technique, or, you know, a use of certain colors together or whatever. But I've seen this with so many artists that, you know, every painting they are learning something new. And I would, you know, hate to get to the point where I am just throwing out as like a machine that it doesn't need me anymore, you know, it doesn't need me to learn anymore. And a lot of people have said that about my work, like, Dan, you don't necessarily have a specific thing, you know, you're not the artist that does the seascape or paintings of the moon, or, you know, that if they are teaching it in school, they say, oh, you should look at Dan, the painter. If you're doing a project on the moon, you have to look at moon paintings from Dan. I don't want to be fixed in one box that says, and I think in a way, maybe that is part of, you know, perhaps why it has been like a struggle, and it's because the paintings are different. You know, I am going to try to find those stories, those experiences, and they're always going to be new. And I think, you know, if you look at work that I've done even 2 years ago, it's evolved. And I don't pretend that it will be the same. And I wonder sometimes, you know, does that put off the art market and the collectors? And because I am engaged in that world also. But, you know, I guess I'm lucky in the sense that, you know, I have been able to reach a wider audience and then can take those kind of risks. You know, because there is still enough audience that will or want to take that journey with you, you know. And I find actually a lot of collectors are artists themselves, you know, and they have recognized something in the work that inspires them. So that's also a really wonderful thing in the way that you have created the gallery here to support the artists in that journey. You benefit from that journey also, because it gives you that joy.
Totally.
So it's like a nice collective.
Yeah, right.
In that sense, you know, everybody is on a journey together and evolving.
And going deeper in your own inner journey means you share your journey. And then through the connection of all these journeys, we learn more about the general journey of humanity. Yeah, well, Daniel, tonight, it's the 5th of December, it's the opening of your solo exhibition tomorrow here in Hamburg. The show is called Tomorrow, it's today. So we're both pretty excited how that night will be. I hope we have nice discussions with people, me as the gallerist and you as the artist. And I'm really looking forward to it, and I want to say thank you again.
No,
for being
really,
here with us.
No, really thank you for the opportunity. Like I said before, the way that we have connected, the way that I stumbled across this, and the opportunity and the passion and enthusiasm that the MUMA Gallery has, I have not discovered it before. I've worked with lots of galleries before, but this really, I think, drives the quality in the work and the type of discussions that we can have. And I really hope that the audience responds in the same way.
I'm sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.